Welcome to the road to 1 million US dollars. Let's get right into the Bitcoin chart for today, starting on this 1 hour time frame for Bitcoin, and then later on we're going to zoom out to the higher time frames. First of all, we have now completed this rising wedge pattern, so I am going to get rid of that as well as the parallel channel that we looked at previously. And that gives us a clean view here. So what we can see right now happening in the charts is a bullish divergence happening on the 1 hour time frame. Now, in the case that you don't know, a bullish divergence is when you have higher lows in the RSI momentum indicator and lower lows in the Bitcoin price. And typically this points towards us getting a break from all of this bearish price action that we saw here recently, either in the form of some choppy sideways price action or potentially some bullish momentum on the 1 hour time frame. Currently, we are trading inside a weekend, so therefore I do think it is more likely that we're just going to see some choppy sideways price action. Now, zooming out to the 2 hour time frame, I am also going to get rid of this triangle pattern because we hit the price target there. And I want you to take a look at these Fibonacci levels because recently we obviously crashed to the downside, and now we need to look for some levels where we could possibly retrace to. For example, we dipped right to this 0.5 Fibonacci level, sitting at 102,000 in the Bitcoin price, where we did find some short-term support initially, but right now we are below that 0.5 level, potentially about to flip it into a level of resistance. So in the case that you do start to see that rejection, make sure to look towards this Fibonacci golden pocket here, sitting between 101 and 100.7K, because typically these Fibonacci golden pockets tend to be a strong level of support in the short term. And of course, if we were to resume to the upside during this weekend, for example, look towards this 103.1K level as some short-term resistance once we break these previous highs at about 102.5K. So that's it for the 2 hour time frame. Then let's zoom out to the 4 hour here. Again, here I want to get rid of some stuff to just keep a clean chart. We're getting rid of that ascending channel we looked at. And in fact, I'm also going to get rid of this price target from this falling wedge pattern that we looked at previously. We broke out to the upside here, and what we saw here yesterday is that we traded below the point of the breakout. I was saying, look, if we get some kind of strong bounce off of this, I'm willing to make an exception, because typically once you get candle closes below the point of the breakout, that counts as an invalidation for that pattern. But I wanted to give it some room to breathe. And now we are 24 hours later. We haven't seen that bounce. In fact, we are just chopping on top of this descending line of support. So now I'm going to call it and say that this is no longer a falling wedge type of breakout that we're looking at on the 4 hour time frame at least. And instead, what we're looking at is just a descending line of support, currently sitting at about 101.5K. In the short term, or maybe early next week or something, of course, it is possible to see a bounce from there, but I think we should be taking a look at the 1 day time frame in that case, because here we do actually have a falling wedge pattern with the point of the breakout sitting at about 100K. So this is the more important pattern that we should be taking into consideration. And from now on, I will only be looking at this 4 hour time frame as a short-term level of support. Next, let's take a look at some bigger support and resistance levels on this daily time frame. Right now, we're trading right inside this big level of support, sitting from 102.5K down to 101.5K. So yes, if we get candle closes below that 101.5K level, likely at that point we're coming down into this big level of support below, from 100 down to 99,000. And looking at the resistance to the upside on the daily time frame, guys, I have held the same opinion here the entire time. So understand that there's of course a difference between the different time frames, and therefore we can see breakouts and big dips and everything on the lower time frames. But as far as I am concerned, so long as we are not getting daily candle closes above this 107K level, guys, we cannot expect a massive pump to the upside for Bitcoin. We need to get some kind of confirmation of that candle close above 107K to say, okay, more likely than not, we are getting that move to the upside at that point. So I know that this is not a popular thing to say. I get criticism about saying things like this quite frequently, of people telling me that I am saying it can go up or down, right? But look, the thing is, man, we have to be objective on this channel. We have to be objective in this analysis. And on the daily time frame, what this is telling me is that before we can even consider a big move to the upside into these newer all-time highs, then we need to see at least a break above 107k with the candle close. And I know that when I'm talking about this now, it's like, yeah, obviously. But I was also saying it when we were actually in this area here. And, at the time it wasn't a popular opinion, but then we got this big move to the downside to 98,000, right? Next, taking a look at the Bitcoin liquidation heat map on the 3-day time frame. Notice how we do have some liquidity to the upside at 103k, with as well some liquidity to the downside at 101.2k. And this is exactly what we expect to see during these weekends, guys. When we are just chopping around, what you're going to see is liquidity pile up to the upside as well as to the downside. And then usually once we head into the new week, you're going to see a bunch of liquidity being taken out, because then all of the volatility returns to the market. So take note of these areas here, because potentially the Bitcoin price is getting attracted to those levels. Next, moving on to the 2-week time frame, and here you can see a beautiful picture. We have most of the liquidity to the upside sitting at 107.5k. So again, I do think it is more likely than not that we are going to end up taking out all of this liquidity here at some point. And of course, the easiest would be if we just don't end up invalidating this falling wedge pattern, because so long as we do not invalidate it, technically we are targeting 114,000 in the Bitcoin price. Next, moving on to the Bitcoin ETF flow tables for today. Surprisingly, yesterday we actually saw a net inflow of over $300 million into the Bitcoin ETFs. Most of that coming from the BlackRock Bitcoin ETF once again. So you can really start to see how BlackRock is accumulating a lot of Bitcoin here, especially compared to all of these other ETFs. So yeah, that is just something interesting to note. And yes, even the cumulative flow is still bullish here. So yes, even with this big outflow that we got this week, this was still a good week in terms of ETF inflows. Either way, this has been today's market update. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel with notifications on so you don't miss any of these important update videos. Hopefully we can get to 10,000 subscribers this year, guys. That would be really cool. So double check if you are subscribed already. I would really appreciate it. But regardless, if you do end up subscribing or not, thank you for watching once again, and I will see you tomorrow in the next one.